Hey, what's up guys? I've been meaning to make this video for a long time. I just wanted to basically summarize my entire experience as a pre-med and how I got to where I am today. So yeah, just go ahead and get started. I was born in LA in the Valley, and my parents are both from Iran. They're immigrants from Iran. My dad is, ethnically Iranian. My mom is Armenian, but her and her family were all raised in Iran. So they came to America and they had me, yay. Yeah, growing up, I was always interested in science. I was the firstborn child, so like everyone's all stoked on me. Like anytime I go to school, they always wanted to know like what I liked in school, etc. And I would always say like, oh, hey, like, I really like science. So yeah, science was always something I was interested in, especially biology. When you're that age and your family hears that, the automatic thing that they do is like, oh yeah, okay, like you should like go be a doctor, blah, blah. So yeah, I was always interested in becoming a physician and going to medical school from an early age. I went through elementary school, I went through middle school, went to high school. Honestly, growing up, I was not like a super stellar student, I was able to get by, high school and stuff without really trying too hard, and I wasn't a stellar student by any means. I wasn't like super proud of my GPA or like graduating or anything, but I ended up getting into a few colleges out of high school, and I ended up choosing to go to UCI. And I started out at UCI as a biology major. And yeah, college was insane. I remember going to orientation a few weeks, or I guess it was a few months before college started. And that was like the first time I was like meeting like other students who were also going to go to UCI. And that was like a super exhilarating time. I think that's when I started getting really excited about going to college, is when I went to orientation. I ended up meeting a few amazing people, one of whom ended up being my freshman year roommate, and we ended up actually rushing and joining the same fraternity. So that was fun. And then I ended up meeting another friend who has been one of my closest friends up until this day, and he's in medical school now as well. So yeah, and then at orientation, that's when I realized I was like, oh wow, this college thing is probably going to be a lot of fun because you get to meet people your age, etc., and everyone's excited and hyped up. So yeah, I started out at UCI. I was a bio major. The way that UCI was set up at the time is that everyone starts out as a general bio major, and then after you end your second year, you can start specializing in something if you like. So they have a few different specialties like neurobiology, ecology and evolutionary biology, developmental and cell biology, and biochemistry and molecular biology. So, but yeah, I just started out as a general bio major, and I was actually a part of what they called back at the time the campus-wide honors program at UC Irvine. So it's like a school-wide honors program that you start out in, and they basically let you know that you're in that, like when you get accepted into UCI. So I went to UCI, I was in the honors program, and I remember signing up for classes at orientation with the other honors students, and we found out that we were all going to be taking 20 units in our first quarter of college. So at the time, that was kind of like an insane course load for like a freshman first quarter student, but all the other honors kids were doing it. So I thought like, it shouldn't be too bad. So like everyone who was like an honors kid and a bio major, they were all going to take 20 units in their first quarter. So that's just classes like bio, chem lab, and some GE classes. They called it humanities core, which is just a bunch of like reading and writing and stuff like that. So yeah, started out at UCI, I moved out. That was the first time I moved away from home. And Irvine is about an hour drive away from like LA, where my family's at. So I wasn't too far away from home. But yeah, I started out at UCI, and I mean, the moment I got to UCI, I was like, all right, this is gonna be fun. I'm here to have fun and meet people. So like, the first few moments at UCI, I didn't even feel like I was in school. Like, I would go to class and stuff, but I wasn't really like trying that hard, And one of the classes I was in, I actually absolutely hated with a passion. I don't know why I hated it. I think honestly a part of it was just being lazy and just being afraid to put in the work. But that class was an honors chemistry lab. And actually my lab partner was my good friend that I met at orientation. So it was fun being with him, but the work involved in that class, I don't know why, for some reason I just had a lot of trouble with it. And instead of like sitting down and putting my focus on doing the work, I would just procrastinate and freak out, and it was like this never-ending cycle of procrastinating. And eventually I remember I reached one point in my first quarter where like I was literally on the phone with my parents and I was crying in my car, and I was like, dude, I can't do this. College is so hard. Like everyone else seems to be doing fine. Like I'm struggling. I don't know why. And I was literally, it was like an emotional breakdown, like the first emotional breakdown I ever had about college. And my mom still brings it up to this day. But yeah, and then at that point, that was like the first hint that I got that I was like, maybe this whole pre-med route is not for you. Because I would look at the people around me, the other people in the honors classes that I was in, like the other people who were also taking 20 units at the time, and they all seemed to be thriving. I mean, they were on top of their stuff. They knew how to study. They knew how to do well. They knew how to balance things. And like, I just felt like I wasn't like them, and that I couldn't be like them. I felt like I wasn't capable of putting in the work. So that was like the first hint, like, okay, maybe this pre-med thing is not for you. So that was my first quarter. I ended up doing okay. I ended up like getting an A in bio and chemistry and stuff, but in my other classes, I didn't do too hot. But my next quarter, that's when I started, I rushed a few fraternities, and I ended up pledging and joining a fraternity in that quarter. So a lot of my time was being like spent on like the pledgeship activities and stuff, but I was still in, the honors classes. I was still in chem lab. I was still in bio, etc. And this is when things started getting really tough, because I just started realizing more and more like, dude, I'm not like these other kids who are doing so well in school and still able to have fun outside of classes and how to study and stuff. I truly felt like I didn't know how to study, because I got through high school and I didn't really have to put in work like that, like to study. So it was really tough. So at the end of that quarter, I got probably like the lowest GPA I ever got in college for like a quarterly GPA. And then near the end of that quarter, I had decided like, dude, like, you know what? I'm not cut out for this pre-med thing. I'm not able to do well. And, I decided for spring quarter, I'm not going to take any bio or chemistry classes. I'm going to explore a few different fields. So I still took the honors, like GE classes that I had to take. And then I ended up also enrolling in a management class and an international studies class. And in high school, I actually took 3 years of Korean as my foreign language. And I decided, who knows, maybe I'll take a placement test for Korean, and maybe I'll major in Korean alongside like another major or something. So yeah, that was my plan at the time. So I took the Korean placement test. I ended up placing into like third year college level Korean, because my Korean was really good at the time. It's not that good now, but yeah. And then I took that international studies class, and I was like, okay, this sounds like a good idea. I could maybe do a major in international studies and do a double major in Korean, and then I'll figure out like what I want to do career wise after that. And then the summer started. And that's when I started thinking more and more, and like, I eventually told like my friends, my family, like, this is like, these are my thoughts, and this is why I don't think the pre-med route is for me. And everyone I talked to told me like, dude, like you've been talking about being a doctor for like so long, like your whole life, and like we feel like you're just like giving up prematurely. And one of the people that really helped me understand that I was just not believing in myself and just not really trying was the girl that I was dating at the time. And she was spending the summer in Irvine, whereas I had gone home for the summer. So I thought about it, and I was like, well, I'm already behind in my major. And at the time at UCI, because I was still a bio major, if you fall behind and you don't keep on track with your classes every quarter, they have like a zero tolerance policy. Like they'll kick you out of the major and make you switch your major. And at first I was okay with that, because I thought I was going to do like international studies, but like I was able to kind of give the pre-med route another try, just because I had all these amazing people in my life who were telling me that I was literally just like giving up on my dream, so I'm super thankful for all those people who helped me, realize that I was just giving up, because I really would not be where I am today without that. So I decided, all right, well, I have to go and sign up for a chemistry class now, because I was behind in chemistry. And if I started my fall quarter without having taken that chemistry class, they were going to kick me out of the major. So it was already a week into the summer, and I had to like enroll in a class last minute. I had to find housing in Irvine last minute. I don't know how, but it all ended up like working out. I was able to find a place in Irvine, and I was able to like take that chemistry class. And I actually ended up doing super, super well in that chemistry class. Like that was like the first time in all of college that I really felt like I put in my due diligence, and I put in a decent amount of effort, and I was able to eventually get an A. And like that was like the first small win that I had in college that really kind of snowballed into me staying on track with the whole pre-med thing. Yeah, so I took that chemistry class and I was like, okay, well, summer school is kind of fun. So I took a physics class for the next summer session and I ended up doing well in that class as well. So these small wins kept piling up. And then by the time my sophomore year was about to start, I was like, all right, well, this pre-med stuff seems to be going okay so far, so I guess I'll stick with it. So I literally would not have stuck with that if I didn't have my family and my friends to tell me that I was literally just giving up on my dream. But my sophomore year starts, and at this point, I wasn't really involved in much at school. I was literally, like in terms of extracurriculars, I was in a fraternity and that's it. My freshman year GPA, my GPA at the end of my freshman year was less than a 3.0, you know? So if I talked to any counselor at that point in time, any counselor would have probably told me like, yo, like we don't think you're cut out for the pre-med route. Your GPA is low and you're not really doing any extracurriculars. But luckily I didn't have anything but positive voices in my life. So, you know, I had a few mentors and role models in my fraternity as well. And one of my role models in my fraternity, who's now a urology resident at UC San Diego, he said, hey, Dylan, like no matter what, like remember, like the best applications are the ones that have themes. And at that point, I started thinking, well, you know, like, what are my themes? Like, what am I interested in? What am I passionate about? And, you know, I enjoyed being in my fraternity because there were some leadership opportunities and I had like a position in my fraternity, etc. And I actually ended up being elected the Interfraternity Council president at the beginning of my sophomore year, which is kind of like the student body president of like all the fraternities. And it wasn't like a super crazy election, like, you know, but yeah, that ended up being like the first major leadership opportunity that I had. And I was just a sophomore. So I was like a sophomore and there were like juniors on the board and we were all just like kind of like discussing how to make fraternity life at UCI better. And that was really my first experience with like a real leadership position. And that also added to the snowball effect as well. Cause I looked in the mirror, I was like, whoa, like you're IFC president and like, you know, you're doing decent in school. Like this is kind of a really cool experience. So that was my fall quarter. My next quarter at UCI, my winter quarter of my sophomore year, I was in my biochemistry class, and I really, really liked that class. And the professor of that class, his name is Dr. Thomas Poulos. He's one of the faculty at the UC Irvine Department of Molecular Biology and Biochemistry. I was just randomly staying up late at night. I was procrastinating my studying, and I was like, you know what? I'll stalk this guy's like faculty profile and see like what he does other than teaching. And I found out that, you know, he was doing research with X-ray crystallography, studying heme enzymes and structure function relationships in those enzymes. And it sounded really cool to me. So I decided like, you know what, screw it. I'll just email him. I'll see what he says. So I emailed him and I was like, hey, I'm in your class right now. I'm really enjoying it. And, you know, here's my transcript. Here's my resume. Like I would love to meet with you to see if there's any opportunities for me to contribute to your lab. And he actually emailed me the next day and was like, yeah, sure, stop by and then like we'll chat. And I guess it ended up being like a little like mini interview. And at the end of the interview, he was like, all right, well, I'm going to show you the lab, like, you know, come on by. And then that's when I started doing research at UCI. I started doing research in like the spring quarter of my sophomore year. And so looking back from then, if my freshman year self saw what I was like doing just a year later, it's like IFC president, doing research, etc. Like I literally would not have like believed that I was capable of that, which goes to show like how important it is to believe in yourself, and not only to believe in yourself, but also to have those people in your life who are going to help you believe in yourself. You know what I mean? So yeah, I started doing research. I did research over the summer and I took some classes as well. And I got super into it. I mean, after like a quarter or two of like doing research, like I decided like, yo, I love biochemistry. This is awesome. And yeah, I ended up deciding to specialize in biochemistry and molecular biology. So all my upper division classes were all biochem and molecular bio classes. And I love that subject. I just love the idea of the interface of like chemistry and biology. And it ended up paying off because I didn't know, but you know, they were making changes to the MCAT, and the MCAT was going to have, you know, the new version of the MCAT, well, it was new at the time, was going to have a ton of biochemistry. So I ended up getting super lucky with majoring in that and enjoying that. But yeah, I only majored in that because I genuinely enjoyed it. But I got super into research and I got super into getting involved on campus. So all the snowball effect of getting the confidence of like from like doing research and from being IFC president and all that, it really made me want to get even more involved. Like I wanted more, right? So I ended up being an organic chemistry peer tutor in the Department of Chemistry, like hosting review sessions for like all the major organic chemistry exams. And I did a few other things. And then I started volunteering and shadowing as well. And yeah, I just volunteered at the UC Irvine Medical Center. They have a volunteer program, and I applied for and joined this shadowing program at UC Irvine called ICE, which stands for the Irvine Clinical Experience, and they paired you up with like doctors and stuff. So I started doing that, and I was like, man, like I'm volunteering, I'm shadowing, I'm doing research, I'm doing all this stuff. And like the thing is, like, I didn't even think I was capable of finding those opportunities until I started believing in myself, you know? And, you know, I was shadowing this emergency room doc at UCI, and I thought that was really cool. And I also shadowed in the operating room with a colorectal surgeon at UCI. And I mean, after shadowing in the ER and in the like surgeries, I realized like, dude, I'm like medicine is awesome. So at that point, that's when I was like, all right, I'm gonna go full steam ahead. Like, yeah, like I was teetering on the pre-med line, and I was doing things that were kind of aligned with being a pre-med, like research and leadership and stuff. But once I started shadowing and volunteering, that's when like I became like super galvanized, and I was like, all right, like we're gonna do this, like let's go. So that's when I started thinking about the MCAT. I literally hadn't thought about the MCAT at all. Like as you can tell from this story, I was not super prepared. Like I didn't know what the things you had to do were as like a pre-med. I was just in college, like studying and like having fun, but like I wasn't really doing a lot of planning ahead. But once I started shadowing and volunteering, that's when I was like, all right, it's time to start planning ahead. Like let's do this, you know? And so I started thinking about the MCAT, and originally I was going to take the MCAT in the summer between my third and fourth year of college, so that I would only end up taking one gap year. But I ended up applying for and getting a job offer to be an RA, or a resident advisor, and this is basically like a person who lives in the dorms with like the like freshman students and helps mentor them and stuff. And that was like my dream job since I was a freshman, because my RA when I was a freshman was like super impactful on my experience. And, you know, I had done some mentorship experiences already through like peer tutoring, through my fraternity, and even in high school and stuff. So I was always interested in mentorship and helping others. And being an RA was, it like in my head, kind of like the epitome of like being a mentor. So the training for that was going to be over the summer though. So my thought process about the MCAT was that I didn't want to do anything else when I was studying for the MCAT. Like I wanted to just like set aside a few months of time to study for the MCAT. So yeah, I decided to push the MCAT back another summer so that I could do my RA training over the summer, and that I could be an RA in my senior year of college. Yeah, so at the end of my third year, I had done like so much. I was still doing research. I was still volunteering, shadowing. I was doing the organic chemistry peer tutoring. I was doing the fraternity stuff. And like, you know, at that point, again, if my freshman year self looked at what I was doing at the end of my third year, they wouldn't like believe it, you know? And again, it just goes to show the importance of believing in yourself. So I did my RA training. I ended up being an RA in my senior year. And it was like one of the most amazing experiences that I've ever had. And that's one of the things that made me realize how much I cared about mentorship. So yeah, that was an amazing experience. And I forgot to mention, another thing that I started doing in my junior year at UCI as well was that I joined the school's radio station. So growing up, I realized I had a huge passion for music, and I would always hear like, I was big into like electronic music, and like all these electronic DJs had like their own like podcasts and like mix shows. Like back when podcasts like weren't even a thing, I'm talking like 2010, 2011, like they would have like their own mix shows that would be online with like their weekly mix. And I always thought to myself like, man, this is so cool. Like when I was a kid, I was like, wow, it would be so cool if I could have like my own radio show like this one day. And I saw a post on Facebook from someone in the campus-wide honors program who was doing the whole radio show thing at UCI. And I hit her up and I was like, whoa, like this sounds like a cool opportunity. Like, how do I get involved? And she said, oh, well, like you just have to show up, and there's a training class for a quarter, and then you can have your own show. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm sold. So I did the training class, and then I got my own radio show in the middle of my junior year, that I would do my own weekly radio show where I would DJ live on air for 2 hours every week. And that was like another one of the most amazing experiences I've had because I just love music. It's a big part of my life. I love electronic music, and I taught myself how to DJ and like live mix on air, and that was an amazing experience as well. And yeah, it was cool because it was an FM radio station, so you could like both like listen on the radio as well as tune in your car if you're like in the Orange County area. So that was awesome. I mean, so yeah, if my freshman year self saw that, you know, the radio show, the research, the fraternity stuff, the volunteering, the shadowing, like I wouldn't have believed it, you know? So yeah, it was awesome. I started my senior year, and my senior year of college was literally like the busiest that I've ever been in my whole life. You know, I was an RA, and I would be on duty where like I would have to, you know, go on rounds and stay up late and be woken up in the middle of the night if there were like any like complaints or if someone was locked out, etc. I was doing research. I was in my lab probably 30 hours a week because I got my own project the summer prior, and I had to do a lot for that project. I had a full course load. I was still doing some fraternity stuff. I think at the time I was vice president of my fraternity, and I was just doing a whole bunch of stuff. But even though I was super busy, like it didn't feel hard at the time because I literally enjoyed like everything I did. You know, like I was busier then as like a senior in college than I was in my first 2 years of medical school. Like that's how busy I was. But again, it didn't feel hard because I love being in a fraternity. I love my radio show. I love being an RA. I love the research I was doing. I liked the classes I was taking because I love biochemistry and molecular biology. So yeah, it didn't feel that tough to have that crazy schedule. But I ended up graduating. I was able to bring up my GPA a good amount. I graduated with a cumulative GPA of 3.64 and a science GPA of 3.84, which was a big jump from the less than 3.0 GPA I ended with in my freshman year. And yeah, I studied for the MCAT that summer. I ended up staying in Irvine and studied for the MCAT. And then I ended up doing super well on the MCAT, which was like another big win in my book that really helped instill some confidence in myself. I ended up getting a 523 on the MCAT. And one of my MCAT teachers, she was working as a scribe at the UC Irvine Emergency Department. So when I heard that she was a scribe, in my head I was like, okay, like are the stars aligning? Because like I used to shadow there, and I was looking for like a clinical job or like some sort of like clinical exposure because I felt at the time that was one of the things that was missing in my application. So when the class ended, I hit her up and I was like, hey, like, you know, I see you're a scribe. Like I always wanted to find some sort of clinical job like that. How do I apply? How do I get involved? And she said, oh yeah, no problem. I'll refer you, blah, blah. And I ended up getting a job as a scribe in the UC Irvine Emergency Department, which was where I literally shadowed like a few years prior. So it was just like crazy how things lined up, you know. But that was an awesome experience. I highly recommend scribing. I think scribing is a great clinical experience because you don't have to pay to get a certificate and the companies will just hire you to work. And that was a really fun experience. Another thing that I started doing in my gap year was I started working for a test prep company, teaching people how to take the MCAT. So that was fun as well. And that was like a nice combination of teaching and mentorship. And, you know, that's when I realized like a lot of people on this pre-med path, they just really need more belief in themselves. So I kind of tried to spread that message in like all my classes and help my students really believe in themselves. And I like to stay in touch with my students as well and like help them even after the class. So I still keep in contact with some of my students till this day, and it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, in my first gap year, I was scribing, I was teaching MCAT classes. I was still doing research because we were wrapping up a manuscript that I was hoping to have accepted at least or published like by the time I submit my applications at the end of my first gap year. And I was still volunteering, I was shadowing, I was still doing my radio show. And I also had an opportunity to TA for a class at the UC Irvine Medical School called The Art of Doctoring. This is a 4th year medical school class at UCI that basically talked about, you know, compassion and empathy and how to foster those in like medical students. And that was a really awesome experience because that class, along with a class I took in my senior year at UCI called Compassion in Healthcare, those two classes really opened up my eyes to like, you know, this aspect of medicine that really resonated with me. And that really made me realize that the reason why I wanted to be a doctor is because I really wanted to have strong relationships with my patients. And I ended up being a coordinator for that compassionate healthcare class at UCI in my first and second gap year. And I TA'd for that med school class as well in my first and second gap year as well. And I mean, it wasn't like work. It was just a matter of like, you know, organizing things and making sure all the speakers for the classes were going to come and stuff. But yeah, I mean, my senior year of college and my first gap year, I was super, super busy. But now it comes time to start working on my personal statement, and I made my personal statement really try to tell that story of like, you know, these were my experiences that helped me realize that I wanted to be a physician because I really want to have these strong relationships with my patients. And yeah, I submitted my primary application. I sent my primary application to 30 schools, and I really lagged on the secondaries. So I only completed 20 of the secondaries. I got back 29 secondaries. So one school I sent my primary to, they didn't send me a secondary, but I got back 29 secondaries and I only did 20 of them. And I spread out my secondaries over a long time. Like honestly, looking back, probably one of the biggest mistakes I made with my application process was that I wasn't really timely with my secondaries. But yeah, I did my secondaries and I ended up getting 7 interviews. And out of those interviews, I got 4 acceptances. So I got interviews at, what was the order? My first interview was UCI, then it was Vanderbilt, then it was UCLA, and then UC San Diego, and then Cornell, Yale, and Columbia. And out of those interviews, I got accepted to Vanderbilt, UC Irvine, UCLA, and Yale. And you know, of course, my first acceptance was UCI, and I was super ecstatic. And what a lot of people don't understand is like when you get that first acceptance, like you're going to be a doctor, right? Like a lot of people don't understand that it's so hard to fail out of med school. The schools do everything in their power to help you succeed, and they really work with you to make sure that you're both academically and emotionally well. So yeah, I mean, that first acceptance was awesome. And then I got into Vanderbilt after I got into UCI. And then I got into UCLA, and when I got into UCLA, the thing is, when you grow up around the LA area, people kind of foster this obsession of UCLA in you. And I actually got waitlisted at UCLA when I was in high school. So, you know, UCLA always seemed like an amazing place where I could end up at because it's so close to home. And I remember driving home after my UCLA interview, and I was like literally like, my mind was on fire because I just thought like, wow, how amazing would it be if I was able to end up here from medical school, because I just loved my interview so much. And I got a call from the Dean of Admissions saying, hey Dylan, it's, you know, XYZ from UCLA, how are you doing? And then I immediately started crying. I was like, oh my gosh, like there's only one reason why like they would be calling, you know? And I was ecstatic, and I mean, I was like sobbing on the phone. It's like kind of embarrassing looking back. And then he told me I got accepted, and actually in the same phone call, he let me know that the school was offering me the David Geffen Medical Scholarship, which is basically a full scholarship that covers tuition and housing and gives you a living stipend to help you pay for school. So effectively, the deal was that if I went to UCLA, I was going to graduate debt-free because of this scholarship. And I mean, I was already crying before he said that, but I mean, at that point, I could like barely breathe, you know? And I mean, the thing is like, I'm like starting to get like a little emotional right now. But the thing is like, if my freshman year self, who was like struggling so much and like crying in the car, and who was struggling not only because they were having trouble adjusting to college, but because he was just not believing in himself and not having enough work ethic, if that freshman year Dylan like heard that was going to happen a few years down the line, you know, I just don't think I would have believed it, you know? And it's just crazy looking back now, because like when I got that phone call and I heard about that deal, I mean, I kind of knew at that point I was going to go to UCLA. I mean, the opportunity to go to a fantastic school that was close to home, and that was, and that I was going to go basically debt-free. I mean, that was just an opportunity that I knew right when I heard it, that I couldn't refuse. So yeah, that was incredible. And I ended up also getting into Yale a few months later. But I mean, even then, I knew that I was going to go to UCLA just because the opportunity to go to a fantastic school so close to home was one that I couldn't refuse. So yeah, and then basically when I found that I was going to go to UCLA, at that point, like, you know, the rest of my gap year, I was just chilling. So I had basically, I got into UCLA, I think like in like middle of January. So I knew like that I was probably going to go there. So the remaining amount of time until med school started, I was just chilling. I mean, I was still doing my radio show because that's something I was super passionate about. And I was still teaching MCAT classes because I needed the money and also because I enjoyed teaching and mentorship and stuff. But those were my only like remaining obligations after that. I had finished up my research. I had stopped working as a scribe at that point. And yeah, looking back, it's like a crazy story to like recap it in video form. But yeah, I mean, I really don't think that my college freshman year self would have believed that I was capable of making it to where I am today, right now, you know? And that's why I started, you know, that's why I made my Instagram account. That's why I'm doing my podcast. That's why I'm doing this YouTube channel. That's why I'm doing all these things that I'm doing. That's why I literally sit every day and respond to all my Instagram messages and like try to help people as much as I can, because I really think that if more people believed in themselves, then they would have an easier time getting to where they want to be. And so that's why I do what I do, because I kind of just want to be the person that I needed when I was a freshman in college struggling. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to this video. It really means a lot. And yeah, if you want to hit me up, I respond to all my messages on Instagram, and you can find me on a bunch of major social media platforms. My Instagram handle is @MedSchoolDylan. I have a podcast called the Dylan DeJam Mentorship Podcast. There's this YouTube channel. I'm on Twitter @MedSchoolDylan. I'm on TikTok as well at MedSchoolDylan. You can hit me up on LinkedIn as well. You can just search my first and last name, Dylan DeJam. I'm on Facebook, and there's also a Facebook group called the Dylan DeJam Mentorship Group, and you can find the link to that Facebook group in my Instagram bio. I also have a free MCAT study guide in my Instagram bio as well. Again, like I'm just trying to spread the message of people believing in themselves, and I'm just trying to be that person that the freshman year Dylan needed to help him believe in himself. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. It means a lot. Let me know what you think in the comments. All right, and again, you can just message me if you ever need help with anything. I'd love to help you out. Cheers.